Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would actually work on building a tank as discussed in the last video, like a higher end tank, T4 type CPU creation. Just wanted to show you a few more updates done to the space carrier before I get going on that. I got kind of a work in progress sign I'm working on for like a general directory sign for elevators. Did get some help with Crazy Z on this as well, trying to get this first part right. I had all kinds of issues. Like when I first did it, I don't know why, but the MCRN that I was putting up there in the top ended up being hidden underneath the other things and a bunch of little problems. So I'm getting that kind of worked out. And this color here is supposed to be orange. I went online to pick like colors, and I actually got like a very deep orange for that shade, but it seems to come out more of a yellow. So I'm still working on it, but it's getting underway. A couple other changes done to the carrier. Again, some more fixes and detailing in places, but I did make some modifications on this side of the hangar bay. Um, Show you what it looked like before. It was basically a mirror image of what you see here, which has like a little storage room up here and a couple chests. Um, so this side now has a medical bay and a quartermaster. Medical bay functional. Basically, you got all your unique items to cure broken legs and such, and a standard med station and O2 station. Now next to it, this was a suggestion also in comments to have a quartermaster. Now I've got an armory up there. And I didn't want to have like the quartermaster, at least like in a functional standpoint, up there. I wanted it more hangar side due to its practicality. So basically, this is nothing but another 110K storage, a fridge, and an armor locker. Idea behind it would be to stock this up with things you would want to take out on with a SV or HV, and so you can kind of arm it up quickly, and it's just another bay. I guess everything's Wi-Fi anyway, so but it's there, and I figured I like the variety. I'm trying to um, eliminate as much symmetrical interior things as I can this way. So by redoing some of these areas and making them into something else on one side versus the other side, then you get that asymmetry more in the interior. And much of the interior, especially on the front half of the ship, is pretty much all asymmetry inside the structures. The actual structures themselves are symmetrical, but it's almost like they're buildings inside of the ship, more or less. So that's some stuff here. Then there's been minor other things done too, but I don't want to waste too much time on that. Next part I want to talk about a little bit here is the name for the ship, and it has to do with the vote and the bunch of names that were up there. Now, I apologize on one thing though. When I was going through the comments, there was another name that was suggested to be in the list 6 days ago, and that is Vicarious. Um, and I was thinking, right when I read it, I acknowledged it. I started humming a Tool song, and I forgot to add it to the list. I'm very sorry about that. There was no reason I didn't add it to the list, but I just plain and simply forgot. I meant to do it, and I failed. I apologize. So it never did make it to the list, and that's on me. Um, it's kind of late to add it to the list now because I'm already doing the thing. So I apologize. There was also another name that was suggested, but it was only suggested yesterday, and this was already running for over the weekend and everything. So I also didn't add that name to the list. Again, I apologize. If I do something like this in the future with naming something, I'll try to be a lot more organized with it. But as in the tally, now the tally, what I did is I went through the comments on the last 3 YouTube videos and also checked the comments on the Steam links for those same videos, or basically within inside of Steam. Um, and I came to a number count, and all this is verifiable. If I messed up and anybody wanted to double check my results, feel free. Um, Nothing was changed or manipulated. I can't speak. Okay, so as in the names, Um, Two names got the most votes, and unfortunately, they got the same number of votes. But the names that did get votes, there was one vote for Mark Watney, one vote for Randall, two votes for Olympus Mons, seven votes for Leviathan, and seven votes for Praetorian. So I believe the name is going to be one of those two, but it's a tiebreaker at 7 votes apiece right now. So that's where I'm at, and I still don't know what to call it. I like both names. So um, I guess I will leave those two names up here. And if you guys wanted to try to figure out a tiebreaker somehow, I don't know exactly how that could be done. I'll leave them both there and see what most people think. It's a tough call. I mean, both names are really cool and fitting. So um, yeah. Anyway, another thing, right before I started on this HV that I plan on building, a HV tank here, is also I'm realizing I'm having some issues with YouTube uh, comments, and it's not your comments, it's YouTube itself. I don't quite understand what's going on. With YouTube, I get notifications when there's like a message or something like that, and I was trusting in that to see new comments. Obviously, I've got a lot of videos now over the course of the last year, and I can't like go in and check every video individually for any new comments every day. So I thought YouTube was actually telling me about new comments. But I've been discovering that it tells me about some, and it doesn't tell me about a whole lot of others. In fact, there's been some comments that I didn't even know existed, and then all of a sudden, like the other day, it's like I was caught up on comments. I even checked. You can get into YouTube Studio, and you can look at any unread comments, things like that, and it says I got no unread comments. Everything's up to date. Then all of a sudden, it's like one day I get like wake up and it's like there's 30 new comments, and I'm like, what? Why 30 new comments all of a sudden like that? And it turns out that a lot of these comments are from like months ago that I never acknowledged, and I didn't know they were there. So I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I thought I had everything right, but it's just I've been really trying to keep up with that stuff. Um, but it's been weird. So I have missed a lot of comments or didn't respond to a lot of comments, and I feel again bad for that too because I've been trying to, but I just didn't realize they were there. So I don't trust what YouTube says on unread comments. It seems to be inaccurate. I don't know where it's like pulling the data from or how it's doing it, but it doesn't seem to do it quite right, and it's missing a lot of stuff. I don't know how to cure that because the time it would take to like every couple of days go through 100 videos and look at comments would be a lot. Um, so I don't really want to go that route. I just don't know what's up with it. So I'll do some internet searching and try to find a solution. Okay, so what I want to do now that I'm done ranting, and thanks a lot for all the picks on the names too. That is cool. I dig the names. A lot of the names are really good. Um, my objective at this point in time is to build a new SCAR tank from ground up here. So, and the idea, I talked about this a little bit on the last video, I want it somewhere in between the size of the MCRN Ballista and the Demos HT. But it's nice having both of these tanks sitting here, knowing they're both CPU compliant and knowing what I can build and get away with current CPU tiers. Um, the objective of this build, now it's going to be more of a technical build because I got a lot of qualifications I want this to be, or do I should say. So I'm kind of basing a lot of the design on the Ballista, which I feel, and actually some comments also feel this is much better tank at, especially because of its firing range and where it can get all the turrets on the target at one time, where the Demos had a lot of these turrets that are kind of tucked in these little areas which make them not all able to fire forward when moving. So I like that idea, and I'm going to follow that idea on the new tank. But the biggest side effect with this tank, and especially when it was built with the HV CPU cap of 70,000, is there were some complaints about it of not being quick enough. So my point here, taking a look at like the CPU of this tank, being at 65,000 roughly, and the other tank actually capping it out at 100,000, is I've got some wiggle room. So basically, I could build a tank with this kind of firepower and this kind of turret arrangement, a little bit bigger, with more armor and more thrust power. And the goal of this is to make a speedier and a little bit tougher version of what this tank is. And it's intended to be for the Scar faction. So that is my goal and game plan. Now, there's something else too. Okay, so base material is going to be combat steel, HV combat steel. And one other thing too, there's I do this pedestal thing on just about every build, especially if I'm building on land. If I'm building in space, no big deal, but I do prefer to build on land due to the lighting. Is a lot of times, you know, if you're building something out and then you get in the cockpit to see how your view is or something like that, the thing tips over on you. I had that problem before too, and that makes it kind of nightmarish because you don't have the thrusters or anything and can't move back up in the right position at that time. So one idea for that, and I'm going to do that right now, is on your little base here, build out a pedestal like this. And when you go to test this or hop in the cockpit or something, it will not fall over on you. Of course, all this gets deleted, you know, once you get your tank or whatever you're building with thrusters, and it can move on its own. And then you can blow away all this stuff. But this will prevent it from falling over. And of course, if it's a really big creation, you'd want to extend these out further yet. Alright, so let me grab one other part here so I've got it. Forgot to grab this. I'm going to grab some just turrets here, and we'll grab some Gatling guns as well. Alright, so we're going to say that, well, this here, we'll just say that this is the bottom of the tank. And don't worry about that. You're in creative mode. Well, if you're building in creative mode, this won't collapse or anything on you, and it shouldn't anyway, even if you were in survival with the HV. Alright, so we'll start there. I'm gonna get symmetry on right away. This will be a symmetrical tank, well, on the outside. Interior more than likely will be asymmetrical. Okay, so my first order of business is I want to get a turret layout. Now, because this is more of a technical design and not so much of an artsy design, of course I'm going to try to make it look artsy later on, but it needs to have a lot of things in the right places first before I really get too crazy on how it looks. The same thing with the MCRN ballista. I really had hardly any options with doing this front here. It had to be in a particular way. So I do like the turret layout here a lot on this one. So I was basically running staggered leveled turrets each time, trying to be out of the way of the other turrets so they can all fire as many sideways and in front as possible. Same idea here. So what I'm going to do is, let's just say that this is a center. We'll build some general turret mounts right now. Now this tank's going to be a little bit bigger than the other one as well, so that's another thing. So what I'm going to do, the MCR and the base turrets had one block in between the two front turrets there. In this case, I'm going to have 3 blocks between the two turrets. And then essentially it'll go a space back. I want to have a gap here in between one turret and another so I can put some angled blocks or something in that space. So let's say we throw another 2 turrets here. And I'm probably going to do that even again. go up another block row. And another 2 turrets here. So now that is 6 turrets. Now maximum turret count, not including the artillery. Let's see, let's what we got. 1, 2, 3. We got 6, 12, 14. So there's 14 total turrets you can put, and then 1 artillery, and then up to 6 Gatling guns, and that would be the max weapon loadout for a HV in game rules. So let's see, we've got those 4 or 6. Probably should extend this out. Again, kind of going by what was done on the ballista here. And I want a block row in between that again so I could do some future shaping. And we'll put a turret mount here. All these turrets will get replaced with specific types of turrets later on. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Okay, so now that this is taking us up to 10 turrets, I believe it was 14 is what I can go to, so it needs 4 more turrets on this tank yet. Do I run another row upward, or do I try to run more back this way? I don't know. That's kind of where it breaks down. Now on the ballista I put 2 turrets facing this side direction as well, which is kind of cool. Bit of a breakup and gives you some different angles that you could fire at in some situations. So maybe I'll do that here too. It's going to be a little bigger tank in the first place, so let's say that over here we have another turret, but these are side mount turrets. Now on width, that's something I want to keep close tabs on too. How does that compare to the Demos? I don't want it any wider than the Demos. In fact, I would like it a little bit skinnier if possible. So I think that's safe where I'm at right now. Okay. So now, another big turret that needs to go in here is the artillery. Of course, I do want that somewhere in this general vicinity. The turret is a 5x5 turret, so it's going to have a little bit more block work there. Okay, so let's see, so that would be 5. And you know what? I actually wanted it up. Well, you know, the artilleries have a stance of being a block higher anyway. So maybe I don't need that up. Let me grab an artillery as well. With thrusters on this too, I'm going to try to get as many as I can in, and I think I got a fairly good idea on how many I can get away with and have it CPU compliant. And I'm only going to use the best HV thrusters that are available too. There's these T2 3x1x1 thrusters. Alright, so on this, I'm thinking that would generally work for turret loadout. I'm still lacking 2 more turrets though. So how about on the sides here we add the last 2. So that should put us at 14 turrets. Let's see, 6, 10, 14, and then 1 artillery. So that would be your maximum turret count for the HV. Now it is fairly wide, but offers a little bit more turret separation over what this one is too. So basically, if there was massive splash damage or rocket hit you, and say it was aimed at this turret, at the proximity of other turrets, I don't know, maybe not. Some of them are a bit close together though. So this one's got a little bit more turret separation. Alright, so that I'm cool with. Now, how tall should this actually be above these turrets? I do want to have some interior space as well as especially some heavy front armor. So to have the minimum interior space with a ceiling and be able to put a door in it, it needs to be at least 3 blocks tall. However, 3 blocks is like your head's pressed right against the ceiling. You can walk through it, but it's cramped. So I would prefer to have this 4 to 5 blocks before it goes to the floor. Now, as in armor and things on this, an incredible looking tank right now, isn't it? No, I'm kidding. As an armor and other things on this tank, I want it to have a lot of front armor. It might have 2 layers of top armor. This would be 1 layer. Now, I don't like to use retractable turrets, especially for something more that I really want to work good in game. And my big problem with the retractable turrets has to do with hit points. I know when they are retracted, they actually have a little bit more hit points than a stock turret does, but then they're also not firing. And why I see more hit points in a turret that is not retractable is simply because the 9 blocks I can put below this turret of, in this case, combat steel, is far stronger than what the turret is with its retractable base in the same amount of space. And that is why. Alright, so Scar. How should Scar actually be? Let's try to get a little bit of body lines in here to try to figure out what this should, or what this might resemble here. Right now, I fear it's going to look a lot like the MCRN, but I'm going to try to, keep on making changes so it distinctly looks different in the end versus that. And I use an awful lot of these angle set pieces too. If I can remember what I'm doing. Okay, so let's do that and that. And let's see, should this angle just keep running all the way out to the edge wall there? I think so for now. And keep in mind, after I do a lot of this stuff, a lot of times this stuff gets heavily modified later on. But then I have a better idea of the general, body, and can take a look at it and be like, oh, this would look better if I did that, and this would look better if I did the other thing, or whatever, and keep messing with it until I'm happy with it. So we've got this one angle here, pretty 45 degree and 22.5 degree slope. I'm going to switch my angle blocks here and go to this set now so I can get a different angle on the sides that matches the existing angle. And I'm also not going to bring it out all the way, but I'm going to stop it going 3 and then run some of these kind of blocks like that. Let's see, across the front here. Just to keep this kind of sharp though. Something like that, and then going to something like that. Now, other things that this thing's going to need is obviously the hover engines. Right now it looks too tall. Cosmetically speaking, it just looks like all my turrets are up here, and then I've got this big bulk area up here. And let's see, if this was the floor, I think I've got, just build that out a little bit. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually, this wouldn't technically be the full ceiling either. So yeah, this is coming down too far. Let me take out this whole thing here a minute. It's getting too tall, I think. And we'll go up another block road to about here instead. God, that's still 4 at the front. Is that too much? Looks awfully, yeah, it does look like it's too much. Okay, so one more, let's see. Our front row is here. And we'll say this at the bottom of the tank. Which at its highest point would give me a little bit more, although I did want to get like an extra block row of armor on the inside of this too. And a lot on the front. Alright, so on these side notes, or these side pieces here, so we're running this angle. I'm thinking about manipulating the angle again to create a kind of a curve type thing here. So if I ran some of this here, there, I'm going to change it, I think, again. Yeah, let's see if this works. So we're going to go from that, and we're going to switch angles again to go to this, which should match the other blocks that also changed. Like that, creating more of a rounded curve there. On the front, okay. On the front, another big thing that it's going to need is thrusters. Thrusters is a big thing on this tank. Now, just to take a look at how they were done on the ballista, I snuck in some ones on the side over here, but it only has 4 reverse thrusters. And these thrusters are the same ones I'm planning on using on the new tank. Rather than 4, this is going to probably want 8 or more. Again, big focus on this one is to make it more agile and quicker than the other tank. So, having thrusters right up front, the front of the tank is probably going to get hit the hardest of anything. So if I can hide these thrusters in other locations away from the front, I think I would be safer and better off. So what I'm going to do right now is I want to take this block layer down another row. I'm going to manipulate the angle yet again. I guess we're kind of going with a curvy thing, or maybe I can't here. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I got to go back over to this block set, but arrange them differently than what they're used on the side. So if I go like this, then we're getting another angle in here, which is, again, trying to make this whole area pretty smooth. Like that. And once I get this front part done, then I'll try to get some thrusters in there. I'm doing this all backwards here. Okay, you turn that way and go there. Okay, there we go. Alright. Also, beyond front thrusters, also locations for Gatling guns. And I want to have the full 6 on this one. And it's not to shoot ground troops and things like that. It's to take down shields as quickly as possible on POIs. So here, do we want to... Yeah, let's try that. And that. here. I'm going to change this one more time here, I think. And angle that out a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, well, I don't mind that so bad. All right. Thrusters. Let's see. Just build out a couple more blocks here a minute. Obviously, I wanted this thing to be heavy front armor anyway. Okay, so what I'm looking to try to get in here is 8 reverse thrusters, which would be doubling that of the MCRN. Now, this tank will be a little heavier than the MCRN too, but hopefully not only more heavy, but quicker. Now, what I would like to do, especially if I'm going for a real heavy tank, is there is one legal part you can put in front of thrusters, and that is the open air grates. And I'm thinking about trying to do that on this build as well. Okay, so we got 6. This might work out pretty good. So we got 8. Okay. Now those grates I was talking about, let me grab some of those. That'd be these Sutter windows, actually. I guess I just call them grates, but so if I use this, they're open air. As far as I know, these are valid and do not block thrust, even if the game rules change. So that'll offer the thrusters some additional production as well. And here, now let's do this. Oops. So what I'm thinking too is just to kind of keep going with this little like indentation over here across the side of the craft too, to give it a little bit of breakup in the body. Now below here, I want to have this angle row continue at the same as it was up on top. But the big thing I'm curious about is, should I keep it just going down, or should I again use some angled blocks going in the other direction? I really do like angles, so I'm going to try that and see what that looks like too. Which would be this guy here, like that. And I think that would probably end up looking better in the end. Okay. Okay, so next part too. One thing I was debating on this tank, and it would probably free up some more CPU if I did not put it on here, would be the cheese graters, or the harvesters, I should say. I just call them cheese graters, not sure why, but Now I put those on both other tanks, and I found that to be helpful if trying to get through a forest. Um, hmm. I don't know. I probably should have them on here, and not to mention they kind of look mean. So, but the biggest problem I have with these things is if you get hit and your shield is down, these things blow up like instantaneously. Um, they don't have many hit points, and they don't really offer any protection. And they're very vulnerable and have to be on the front of the tank. So almost every time that I took any damage at all, these things were the first to go. Hmm. Let's see what's going on here. So I've got that angled like that, and it's slicing here. Uh, hmm. Well, let's just build this out a little bit for now and see what happens. I don't know. I probably should put the cheese graters back on here though. If you're having to deal with a POI that's in a wooded or densely wooded place, it would probably be a nightmare if you couldn't like get some of those trees out of the way. I do think I'll have enough CPU, so I don't think that's going to be a major issue. Now, sometimes these actually work out a little bit better if they're spaced upward, but now I notice that if I did have it up a block, I'm blocking a thruster, which I don't want to do. Or maybe I should just keep the 2 on there. I think that'd be enough if you got to get some trees. It's not meant to be out harvesting with. Um, we'll see on that. And you know what? Let's see. It looks a little weak compared to the other ones. Both of these had a couple rows up on that. Well, maybe I'll modify that later. Okay, so another thing is Gatling guns. I don't want these right next to this, so I'm going to just kind of build this up another block row here for now. And let's say we put the Gatling guns in at this height. And now, of course, the more you can separate weapons, the harder it is for them to get all destroyed. But right now my current plan is to have these all kind of next to each other. Which, like, if one of these gets hit, it's liable to take out all 3 of them. Probably not the best plan. So what else could I do? To get more separation, I would actually probably want to drill out a little bit of the frame here. And maybe start dumping some Gatling guns in these areas. Now, if you can also recess these back some, it does make them harder to hit as well. But then, of course, you got to seal this off. These are not airtight, and you'd want like walls and stuff behind them too. You know, I'm gonna do that again here. Yeah, okay, that should work. Okay, so now I could actually remove those, and that gives us our 6 Gatling guns, and now they have some degree of separation Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, going this route, cosmetically, it might not look the best, but it's good. Yeah, it should work better. They should be able to survive longer if your shield's down and you're taking hits. All right, so let's do something. Let's try to make this pretty on the inside here somehow. Um, how can I do that? All right. I'm actually half tempted to change my angling here again to do something a little different. I don't know if I like that or not. I don't like this big open ridge here. In some ways, when I look at a tank, and if you look at modern day tanks too, one thing they try to avoid is to have like a ridge line like this. Essentially, let's say a shell came in, hit the tank here. When everything is angled like this, it distributes that explosive load over the area, kind of almost like it reflects it a little bit, or it doesn't have anything to catch on. Having a open line like this, if a shell came in from here, technically speaking, having this line here would put a lot of force on this area here, and it couldn't distribute that explosive weight or that explosion as much. So maybe I shouldn't do what I'm doing here. Now in the game it doesn't matter, so don't worry about that. It's just I guess in some of my philosophy, what I have always tried to do when building is try to make things plausible looking, if possible. Um, and I think that's the more plausible you can make it look, I think it actually looks better in the end. And of course, my other big philosophy is I want it to look as least like Minecraft as possible. um, Talking about blocks and things like that. That's why I use so many angles and stuff. Which also can be a counter pain in the butt too when you use so many angles, because when you try to place individual things, especially on the inside, like lights and sensors, it becomes nightmarish sometimes. Alright, so yeah, this isn't going to work out on the inside then. Although I'm trying to get some kind of fluctuation in how this all looks. No, that's not the right thing. Like that. Now on this one here, I purposely ran a wedge that didn't quite fit. Um, so I could try to do something a little different here, make a couple lines in the hull. And I'll also use this alternative wedge here, and then this part in between the two, which gives you that little jog out there. Now, another important thing too, and I have heard, but I haven't tested this or verified the information, is thin blocks no longer block turrets in front of them. And that would allow you to put in like a block like there, and it wouldn't stop this turret from firing forward. I don't know this to be true yet, though. I heard it. I haven't tested it. I will do some kind of test to confirm that. it would be nice to be able to do that, because then I could add a little bit of extra armor, I guess, but mostly decoration. Try to make things a little better looking in the around the turrets than just kind of flat blocks. Okay, so size-wise, I'm hoping yeah, I don't know how far back the tank's going to go yet. But again, I was just trying to be in between the size of these two, so I know the CPU would come out pretty good. Now this thing has a just ton of thrusters on it, but these thrusters are of a lesser model than the one that I'm using on this tank. When I built this, these T2 thrusters and things didn't actually exist. That was the best thruster at that time frame for an HV. Okay, so in here too, I want to try to give it a little ridge line in here for decorative purposes, really only. Now, one other thing when I'm building these tanks too, there's especially with PvP a lot and whatnot, there is lag shot, or certain blocks that you use that have gaps in between, like the block below it, so it does collision detection better. Now I heard that you don't need to do that anymore. That whatever was causing that to be a thing was fixed. But then I also heard now it's still kind of valid. So I'm a little in the, I don't exactly 100% know what is correct at this point in time. Should I still run lag shot blocks, or should I just use full blocks, which have more hit points? Of course, I would prefer to use the full blocks, but does that problem still exist? Is the question. So now, what to do on the fronts of these? Got two options here on the if I go with angles on the side, I could go this route like that, or never mind. I don't have two options. I kind of do. There's this wacky block here that I don't like to use too much. It's cool that it's there, but I don't typically like how the light looks on it sometimes. But there's this option here too, which is a little thinner. Well, I think this would lead to problems trying to build out the rest. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. So here, say we did that. Not on the side of that one. Then we'll get in that. And that. Alright, so another aspect that this thing is going to need is your hover engines. I want to get a little bit of reference on this first. this thing out here, and I want to see what both of these tanks are running, and again probably try to come up with something in between the two. So I'm just raising them both up so I can see below them right now. Okay, so this tank is running 8 of those, and this tank is also running 8 of those. Well, this one might have a little less than it needs. I'm gonna shoot for 10 or 12, I think. I want to figure out where to put these things too. Trying to keep them clear of the thrusters, so they don't directly touch them. But I did want them further out over here as well, so that's an issue. But maybe that's kind of close, right behind the cheese graters. Nah, that's too close. How about here? A lot of this could fluctuate too on where these things get placed, depending on how this thing balances out in the testing phase. So that's one to help the front. I want the other ones out further sideways though, for sure. Maybe like those are kind of like mid. I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm a little, with this part aspect, I don't really have this completely worked out. I guess it's more of like trial and error kind of thing. Test it in the game world and see what happens with depending on storage and how the thing balances out and all that fun stuff. So that would give it 10, just 2 more than the other one, but so hard to say. Well, all that can change. Things progress here. Now another thing with Scar too, I know I said that I wanted a lot of their stuff to have tank tracks on it, and here I'm building a tank with no plans to add tracks to it. The reasoning for that is like with the Scar Crawler, which is a base, because it doesn't actually move, it doesn't bug me so much with tank tracks. But when I try to put tank tracks on an actual tank or something like that, and then when you move the tank around, you realize that, well, they don't actually do anything. They're all for decoration. It kind of puts a little damper on it, I guess, where it's like it doesn't seem all that plausible or believable because they don't actually function. Where a non-moving base that doesn't move and you say it doesn't move, you're like, okay, it's broken, whatever. So that's kind of one aspect of this I'm thinking about. I'd rather have it look like it does actually have these hover modules. So like in this area here, I'd like to do something special on the side hull to accent this area, I guess, one way or another. maybe with like an indentation or something that kind of puts 2 and 2 together. And actually, you know what? These should probably come out another block row. It is getting awfully close to that thruster, but and let's see, what could we do here to sort of let you see these, but also try to protect them. Whoops. Get back to this wacky block again here for this one, though. What else could be done here? That ain't gonna do much. I don't like that fan. Alright. Just experimenting with block combinations to see if some wacky combination could kind of look neat in this situation. I don't think there's anything in the arsenal that really works with this block. Trying to angle it into something else. You know what? I'll mess with that later. How about we just put in blocks for now? Be quick about it. Okay. Here, kind of want to do the same thing in front of this area. What these thrusters would come out to here. Maybe this should just be 2. Alright, so another big aspect is strafing thrust. Something pretty important for a tank. Basically, the only time how I see it now, and I changed the way I think about this a lot since the flight model, is with combat-oriented tanks and SVs. Strafing thrust is quite important. With non-combat type things, I don't think it's all that important. With CVs, that are like your starter CVs and things like that, I also don't find strafing thrust to be important versus the CPU cost it takes. So, but this being what it is, I really think it needs to have good strafing thrust. And it's possible too, I could also get those vents over, or those shuttered windows over these as well. But how many should this thing have? It's kind of one of the side effects here on the ballista. It had 8 per side. And it needed more, and this is going to be a heavier tank anyway, so it's just going to need more than 8. Well, any way you look at it. Quite a lot more than 8, actually. So let's see, what can we do with that? I don't think this thing's going to be big enough for me to put like block row separation between all these thrusters either. Okay, so what did that do? So that put a 7 there, 3 there, and let's try to mimic what's going on that part of it. Over here a little bit. Something like that. So, okay, rather than 8, this would have 13. Is that enough? I'm going to say no. And let's I'll put a divider here. And another 3. So that puts us at 16, as effectively doubling what the ballista has. I think that hopefully would come out good. I don't know what CPU is looking like right now, but we're at 40. Not too worried about the CPU. I think I can pull all this off. And for now, I think we'll just fill this in. Now, once this the hull gets actually mostly finished, then I can try to get in there and beautify things and tweak blocks and all that fun stuff. In fact, I'm gonna do a little of that right now here with the side part, so I can make these other pieces fit right. So, and you know what? This whole row here actually does not need to be a full block. It could have this in there. That, oh, well, actually not really. Trying to keep a level of consistency on all these. Now, right now, I don't think it's terribly pretty, but you know, it does look kind of mean though. So I'll give it credit for that, but it isn't pretty. Eh. And my spacing on all these, I think, could use a little work too. It just looks a little off, like I got this going on, and these don't really line up with the other thing and whatnot. But technically, I think all this works. Okay, and one saving grace here on HVs is I don't need to worry about down thrust or lift thrust, which is cool. The biggest, last part of thrusters would be on the rear, and I'm not quite there yet. I kind of want to see this thing move. So I'm kind of wondering, I'm gonna rig this a minute because this video is probably getting longer anyway. This is a temporary thruster housing that I want to put on back to assess the kind of performance. Well, hard to assess that too because it's far from complete, but I wanted to see if I added quite a lot of forward thrust on here, how would that come out? And this was running 12. So this only has 16. Not enough. Oh, they went 1,000 blocks. Alright, so 24 now. I guess everything's kind of fair here, I think. I think size-wise it's some, well, it's close to the size of the Demos. I think it's still a little bit smaller. Now, other things, depending on how much CPU I have left, it could get some other parts such as multi-turrets or something like that, but that is an afterthought. That is not the primary concern of this. I'd rather have the CPU used for maneuverability in this case and not try to make it do too many things. Alright, so from a technical standpoint, I'm gonna just kind of rig this thing so I can drive it a minute. And I gotta use the conventional cockpits. Obviously, one other factor too, I'm not planning on putting any first-person view on this tank. I think it's even like on the Demos, I did put in quite a bit of stuff here so you could have this first-person cockpit. But due to all the glass and defense and narrow vision that you're getting through it, I prefer driving it in third person. Now I'm a first person nut. That's why I did it in the first place. But for a tank meant to take on these POIs, it'd just be cheaper and easier. Probably less space and size to not have try to stick in a first person cockpit here somewhere. Alright, so let's everything I'm putting in now is temporary and we'll probably end up moving. I just want to get some parts in here so it can move. And then there's the other aspect of RCS too, and that would be a great thing to probably add in here after determining how much CPU is left over when all this is done. Okay, so we got fuel, we've got some generators. Don't know if I got enough generators. Need CPU tier blocks. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to chop the base away and place a new core in there somewhere. Again, temporary. Would not put the core there on the tank. Alright. Entry plane off. Let's fill you up. Looks like you turn on. We're about at 50,000 CPU currently. And that's with all weapons installed. And yeah, I think this should work out just fine. I'll probably have some extra CPU, maybe. Alright, so now currently, whatever I'm seeing now, it's going to slow down quite a bit before it is done. So, well, it obviously moves. The generators too. I'm looking at the power consumption. It's not bad at all. Probably has more generators than it needs. But I tell you what though, if it could handle like it is now after being fully complete, that would be pretty awesome because this thing has some serious strafing ability right now. But it's gonna get massively heavier. So right now we're at 100 tons. I expect the end weight to be at about 150 to 170 tons. It'll be heavier than this one. This one was 120 tons. And this one is 262 tons. So it could exceed up into the 200 ton, 210 range. But so it's going to slow down from where it is. But yeah, right now I'm pretty happy. I guess I'll have to keep on assessing that. Of course, I want to make it cosmetically look prettier too, so that's another aspect of it. And then figure out the interior. Even with plans filling in most of this front part of the tank with combat steel blocks, and then probably having a layer of cargo extensions behind that yet before it gets to the cockpit. Should be able to take a good amount of damage on the front and keep going. Of course, balancing, that's another aspect. I can't really do that stuff until I get the cargo extensions in there and kind of build out the rest of the body of the tank to see how it's actually going to work. And then I'll try to make it so I can modify where cargo extensions are to some degree so it could be balanced better. But yeah, I'll stop the video here. I got quite a bit done on this right now, and it's going to go through a lot of changes and things like that too. But that's what I got for today. Again, on the space carrier, yet I would like to call it its official name, but I got that tiebreaker between those two, Leviathan and Empyrion. So I don't want to name it yet. But the goal is still to have this out this coming weekend. It might be Saturday or it might be Sunday. One of the aspects I'm looking at this is I still got a lot of LCD work to do on it. And because of how big this thing is, it's going to take me quite a long time to make the screenshots and prepare a post for it. It's gonna be take a lot longer than most creations I've done, I think. Simply on the enormity of it, and I would like to get some pretty cool looking set piece screenshots if I can as well. Um, so anyway, y'all have yourself a good day. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got a little, you know, if you don't build this stuff too often, or you're new to the game, hopefully you kind of understand what I'm looking at and the principles behind building, like at least an HV tank. All the little caveats and things I'm trying to consider when trying to make this to have good function in the game. Um, And of course, because of all the turrets and the way this stuff is set up, I'm not getting a huge amount of options I can do with like doing a really artsy body or something like that, because so many things have to be positioned, especially with the turrets, in certain ways to make them work right. Of course, I'll probably modify a little bit of that before it's done, but um, that's kind of the goal. When I build stuff, I look at, you know, each build is a little different, and you know, some builds like this one, I consider this a technical build. Other builds are more of an artsy build. And if you're building, you know, for the workshop, the holy grail, in my opinion, is to have both. So if it technically works really good and looks really good, you got yourself a winner. And those will usually do quite well in the workshop, providing it's something that people want to use, you know, certain aspect. I mean, if you're building something that no one, you know, not too many people in gameplay would bother wanting, that could be a side effect as well. But anyway, you all have yourself a good day. I do plan on doing another video this Friday as well. Thanks a lot. And please, if you can, all again, maybe on this last video, to try to vote between Leviathan and Praetorian. I'd like to. I need a tiebreaker. I need a tiebreaker. I don't want to vote myself. I don't, because I don't. Because yeah, I rather have it all the community. I don't want to pick. So there you go. Anyway, you all have yourself a good day. See you later.